手がいいトンネル抜けてと動機やしないまま手あのでっかいビジョンをもう一回描いてさっそう俺が俺もされこれを見たいとまた上がってくればうちの切からマイキーマシン飲み込んでるボケノールに焼き付くワンシーン風化しない
Oh, Shakidaki, ladies and gentlemen, hope you're having a great day today. It's time. We currently have a Venti rerun ongoing, and naturally the big question is, should you get him? And unlike the other Should You Get videos, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Venti. The reality is that after years of barely playing him, the new Hexerei buffs are at least making him significantly more interesting to play. So right now, this is kind of like a honeymoon period where I am definitely personally enjoying him quite a lot more. But we'll just have to see whether or not this actually continues in the future, especially with some very exciting upcoming characters like Varka. Surely he will come someday, because right now what's great about the Venti buffs is that he seems to be right now a particularly perfectly legitimate Anemo DPS character at C0, and that was something that I was definitely lacking in my own character roster. Alright, let's remind ourselves of what the Venti buffs are. His ult is a lot smarter to use. It will target the middle of a group, or at least the middle of a particular target's hitbox, and it won't randomly overshoot. While his ult is active, you will get Anemo infusion on his normal attacks, and when he hits enemies with those normal attacks, his ult actually gets a 1 second duration increase up to twice. While his ult is active, if anyone swirls, they get 50% damage percent bonus, and Venti's ult actually gets a 1.35 times damage final multiplier, so that's actually pretty damn good. And then his Constellations have received buffs as well. I will go through them in the Constellation section. Now, from what I gather, C0 Venti in a Hexerei team is rivaling some very high investment Scary Memes teams, who was previously, I think, the premier actually Anemo on-field DPS, as opposed to like Xiao, who was the plunge DPS before, you know, Shen Yun and various other characters showed up, and as opposed to Chaska, who is technically an Anemo DPS character, but her entire shtick is actually doing other element damage by using her flying gun. Now, essentially, the buffs have made Venti stronger against boss type enemies, which of course was his main weakness. His main strength in his ult is still reserved for waves of enemies and that whole grouping up thing, which apparently this upcoming Spiral Abyss is 1000% catering to. So I will say this, when his ult is being shielded and when it actually is being useful, it is very, very satisfying to play, 100%. But outside of that, as far as I know, he's just now a perfectly decent Anemo DPS. So if you really like Venti, because let's say he has something to do with Istroth, then there's never been a better time to go and get him. But if you're still on the fence about Venti, I think I'd suggest holding off right now, mainly because, number one, you might want to get Durin instead. He's actually pretty good. Number two, leagues enjoyers such as myself are getting very excited for Columbina. Number three, Varka surely will show up, and he may very well be very interesting. We'll just have to see. And then finally, Venti is an Archon, and Hoyoverse have been very, very regular in their Archon reruns, so even if you skip him right now, he will be back very, very soon. Well, not very, very soon, but soon enough. And if you're excited for the Columbina release, like I am, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because as of writing, I haven't actually done the Archon quest, and I haven't even started Durin's story quest either, so if you ring that bell icon, you can be notified of the latest content on the channel. From what I gather, there's two main ways to play Venti. You've got on-field and off-field Venti, obviously, with off-field Venti mainly revolving around his ult. So, yeah, if you're interested in off-field Venti, he pretty much works in any team, I think, and it really just depends on the kind of content you're playing. But with that extra passive from his Hexerei buffs, I think he's likely going to be best involved with another Anemo DPS. For example, a Scary Memes team with him should actually be pretty good. What I want to focus a bit on is a more on-field Venti, the way that I've been playing him the most so far. And really, there's one team archetype that has stood out to me as being the most interesting and exciting to play. We have like this 3-unit core of Venti, because we're playing Venti, but then there's also C6 Faruzan, who is also currently available on the banner as a rate of 4-star, by the way, so if you want her, get her. But she will of course bring some Anemo damage percent through her talents, and then also Anemo Res Shred, and of course C6 will mean Anemo crit damage. And then on top of that, there's Durin, who is of course a brand new character, so you know, you might not have him, but he will bring off-field pyro damage, he will bring pyro and Anemo res shred, and additional element res shred depending on the kind of team we're playing. And then of course we have both Venti and Durin together, which means we do actually get Hexerei buffs, so that's actually pretty damn huge. Now I've tried a few options for the healer slot, and I've landed mainly on Medic Mona, who of course will also bring Hexerei buffs, but the big one that she brings is a longer duration on her Omen, and her C4 will also give plus 15% crit damage on top of the 15% crit rate that it already brings for these characters. And C4 Jean has also been a pretty good option in that you get attack speed with C2, you get Anemo Retro with C4, and of course she's a much better healer than even Medic Mona. Bennett is alright. Okay, fine, he's good. Look, Circle Impact, not healing the team, these are going to be the usual problems that a lot of people seem to always want to cover their eyes and cover their ears going la 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 la, but these will be very apparent in your gameplay experience. When things are working out, yes, you will do more damage with Venti running Bennett as your support as opposed to C4 plus Medic Mona. There's also been another archetype I've messed around with, and that's Burning. Now, I didn't really find Faruzan all that interesting in a team like this, so I've pretty much ditched her for the Dendro character, i.e. Emily. The goal is to actually keep enemies relatively grouped up enough so they can all take damage from their burning auras. Look, it's alright, we're not talking about anything particularly spectacular here, it's air fry, it is what it is, but it's another way that I can have fun with Emily. All in all, I would say that Venti seems quite fun to play now, so if that's Hoyo's goal in giving him his kit refresh, then I'd say it's an overall success. When it comes to building Venti, let's start with his artifacts. If you haven't already gotten a working 4-piece artifact set for him, I wouldn't worry too much because we're going to be getting Hexerei artifacts in the next patch. Leaks and spoilers, but here we go. Basically, the idea is that you're going to get 25% attack as the 4-piece set bonus. But then on top of that, if Witch's homework has been completed, there's an additional 25% crit rate in there. I think it's worded a little bit weirdly. The leaks don't actually show the crit rate stat buff itself. So my guess is that it's 25% attack plus 25% crit rate. Otherwise, for now, it seems like 4-piece Desert Pavilion is the way to go. You can chuck in a cheeky charge attack to get that normal attack speed buff, which actually would make him feel a lot better to play as an on-fielder at the very least. Otherwise, if you don't even have that working, like I don't, then yeah, 2-piece seems to be the way to go, and that's what I have been using on my Venti. If you're off-fielding him, I guess just put the VV in the bag, little bro. For weapons, his new signature weapon is going to be his strongest option. That being said, I have seen some calcs on the Venti subreddit that seems to suggest that something like Polar Star, if you have it, is like dangerously close to it, like within 1% DPS difference. So yeah, other DPS 5-star bows aren't actually that far away either, so if you have a Sky Harp, just use that instead, you're pretty much good to go. So unless you're an Aloy main who's keen beans to see how good the new bow is on her, and by the way, if you are, do let me know how you go with that, because I am actually not going to get the bow anymore. I don't think, personally, I will be recommending the new bow, at least for Venti himself. For 4-star bows, as far as I know, Song of Stillness is the only one that works for his entire kit. At least it's the Fontanian craftable, so that's relatively sort of easier to acquire. It has mid-base attack, mid-attack percent. You do get up to 32% damage bonus if he actually gets healed by someone like Medic Mona, for example, or Jean's regular healing ticks. That should do the trick. Or I guess if you're playing Bennett, you will need Venti to go below 70% HP. Good luck with that. Otherwise, I mean, there's Rust. It only works with his normal attacks, though. I think Venti's ult does a pretty decent portion of his damage now, but I'm not 100% sure about that. There is, of course, the new event bow, Rainbow Serpent's Rainbow, which actually might be pretty good for an off-field Venti at the very least. Otherwise, there's Viridis and Hunt. It's fine. I wouldn't bother R5ing it, but it's fine. Now, let's talk about his Constellations. They've all received buffs. Well, not his C3 and C5. They're, of course, still talent level upgrades. But from what I understand, C5 is worthless, but then again, I have some bias against it because I didn't level up my skill. So let me know if that's actually wrong and you probably should level up your skill anyway. Right now, with my C0 Venti, I've only gotten level 8 talents for normal attack and ult. That seems to be the most sensible and efficient. I suspect his C2 might be considered necessary insofar as it would make him a far more involved on-fielder, and he could do quite a lot more things while he's on-fielding instead of just normal attack spamming. I don't think you need it though, but I don't know, we'll just have to see. Anyway, C1 is still +2 arrows for an aim shot, but you also get +2 tracking arrows in his infused normal attacks, so that's actually kind of nice. 2 of his normal attacks, by the way, are actually 2 quick attacks, so you should only be getting 1 instance of the +2 tracking arrows per these kinds of normal attacks instead of double. C2 is still Anemo and Physical Red Shred, but now it's just the full 24% Anemo and Physical Red Shred instead of splitting it between whether or not enemies are suspended in the air from his skill. Also, Venti's skill cooldown will get reset after dropping his ult, and if you hit enemies with his Anemo infused normal attacks, there's a 25% chance to also reset that skill cooldown. His skill will also do 3 times the damage, so I kind of take it back actually. From C2 onwards, his skill talent levels seem pretty damn important. Look, I got really confused about this extra bit in his C2 about wherever a breeze blows, but I think I understand now. Let me try and reiterate it in a way that I think actually is sensible. When you ult, you will get a 15-second long duration that will cause your next skill, and only your next skill, to do 3 times the damage. Okay? Remember, when you ult, your skill will also have its cooldown reset. On top of that, when you hit enemies with your Anemo-infused normal attacks, you get a 25% chance to once again get that exact same 15-second long effect that will cause your next skill, and only your next skill, to do 3 times the damage. And remember, if you manage to get that effect to happen, the skill cooldown also resets as like an aside. So that's kind of the idea. Okay. Meanwhile, C4 used to only give Venti himself the Anemo damage buff, but now it's actually a team Anemo buff, so I guess that's actually even better for the various Anemo teams, like the Scary Memes team, like I mentioned, that would probably want to use Venti. And C6 will still have the Red Shred for Anemo and the Absorbed element, but now Venti himself also gets to do 100% crit damage against anyone who gets hit by his ult. So it's kind of that standard, oh my god, this Archon does a lot more damage now with that C6. So yeah, Venti seems to be in a pretty good spot. And I have even less reason to play any of the other currently available Anemo DPSs. Obviously, I don't have most of them, but even if they were to rerun, like Chuska, I have even less of a reason to try and get her myself. But all of that is once again likely to change. Maybe when Varka shows up, we'll just have to see what he has in store. I'm really hoping he has a particularly interesting kit that ends up being something that we've never seen before, that ends up like leveraging some brand new mechanics that we don't know anything about. We'll just have to see. Anyway, let me just think what all is in the comments below. How do you feel about the new and improved and refreshed Venti? Let me know in the comments. What kind of teams are you playing, by the way? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Genshin and action, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.